Tēnā koutou e te iwi wānui nau mai oki mai ki te wāpā rika au e taukiri e. He oi anō rā, ka tuku kia rere te reo mai oha ki aku nei kai kōrero I tēnei wā. And again, welcome back to Te Wāpā Rika, Te Korimako o Taranaki. And of course, I'm very privileged to have with me today Lieutenant Colonel Ian Hutson, aroha mai, Hutson, and he is the Director of the Social Policy and Parliamentary Unit. Also, we have the Auxiliary, Captain Amiria Te Whiu. Nō reira kōrua, tēnā kōrua, nau mai, ara mai.
Tēnā koe, Diana.
Kia ora rā. Tēnā koe, Ian.
Tēnā koe, Diane. Good
Kia ora. Kia ora. Nice to have you on board with us here at Te Korimako o Taranaki. And of course, the reason why we're having this kōrero is because you brought your report out and State of the Nation. And I'm going to leave it to you, Ian, to start us off with the kōrero and tell us about the report and how that came about.
Yes, thank you, Diane. It's a privilege to be a part of your program and to have this opportunity. Thank you for that. Yes, the State of the Nation report has been going for 15 years. We became aware that all on the news every day you had reports about how the GDP, the economy, all sorts of different things about how the economy was going, but there was very little commentary or a sort of assessment of how people were doing. And so, I mean, in a way, the things that you count, the things that you take notice of signify what is important. And what was important, it seemed, was the economy, but not the people. And so we started this report 15 years ago. It's got 5 key areas. It's got our children, it's got housing, it's got work and incomes, social hazards, year to year on all of those areas, which are obviously incredibly important to how people are. And in more recent years, we've tried to, at the request of Māori, to include more Māori-specific information. So we've started doing that in tentative ways. Yeah, so that's the background to it. We've been doing it, like I said, 15 years now. So
15 years, and of course, Salvation Army have been around over 100 years. So I think that needs to be recognised as well. If anybody that could write this report, I'm glad that it's come from Salvation Army.
Thank you.
Especially for our people. Kia ora rā. Amiria, Unit Auxiliary Captain, tell us about your role.
I have a very exciting role actually within the Salvation Army. So both Ian and I co-chair the newly formed Te Runanga Nui mo te Ope Whakaora. And it's been an exciting journey to see that grow and support and advocate a Māori perspective within the Salvation Army of partnership. So, Diane, it's been just a tremendous journey in that area. I also hold a national role as development coordinator for Māori ministries overall and in community ministries.
Wow, that's absolutely wonderful. I remember that. I remember when we had the hui here in New Plymouth with regards to the churches coming under that one umbrella and coming together with all the services, with all the churches. It was absolutely wonderful to be a part of. But coming back to the report, and again, I'll come back to you, Ian. You took those sections that you took a look at, the children and youth. Talk to us about that. Well, actually, what we'll do is we'll go into work and income. Tell us about that. Where are we at for Aotearoa in New Zealand?
Yeah, well, in the area of work and incomes, that was one of the slightly better, stronger areas of performance. There was more positive indicators. Obviously, we thought with COVID that we were going to end up with unemployment at somewhere over 10%, but it's down incredibly low unemployment. So that was a really positive thing. And also we've seen benefit increases. We've seen the minimum, wage increase over time. There's been a number of different things that have been quite positive. However, in a way, one part of all of these things always impacts on the other. And that's, for example, obviously, while this has happened, we've got COVID, we've got increasing rents, incredibly increasing rents. We've got fuel costs going up, food, and a whole lot of other things that have kind of, in a way, overwhelmed the gains that we've made in income. And so that in the end, I think, particularly with the housing, which is an area that we're really concerned about in general, Amiria can talk more about Māori, but in particular, but we've seen some really bad moves here. The cost of housing, the housing register's just shot right up, and it just continues to go up. The last 5 years, it's just gone from somewhere down at 4,000 people up to now 25,000. It shows no sign of decreasing.
Stopping. Yeah.
And that's a major concern for us, because it's not just 25,000 individuals, it's 25,000 whānau. And that's not like sort of mild levels of problem with housing. That these are people with the highest need of housing. And so it's a huge concern to us. And so that's one area that's been quite disturbing in the report.
So you put in the report, you had the evidence, you've got the statistics, and you've written out the report. What do you want government to do?
Well,
because at the end of the day, it comes back to government, and they need to take a look at this.
They do. I think there's a number of things here, and I won't. I guess the key thing there is that we think they need to build a lot more social houses. It's not the only answer, but it's not enough. It's not meeting the need, and they need to work with other organisations to do that. That they need to invest more, work with everyone. At the moment, they're just focusing primarily on Kāinga Ora doing all of that, and I think they need to resource other groups to help
with that
this problem, But the other thing that's really important, and it comes back to the income side, is that the accommodation supplement was set some while back, and I'm sure in Taranaki would be the same, and possibly even more so than some places. I don't know how the rents are going, but I understand housing prices have gone up through the roof in Taranaki, and
it has.
It's like anywhere else around the country. The rents have gone up substantially as well, and accommodation supplement just isn't cutting it anymore. And so people who come out of social housing or anything like that try to get into the market rent, just can't do it.
No.
And I'm kind of wondering maybe if it would be appropriate at this point if Amiria talked a bit about
yes I was just going to say to you that probably within our country areas, within our areas where where low income earners, beneficiaries, the rent has just gone so out of control. And what they're wanting is to see whether or not government will help towards either stabilising rents, just some help out there, because it's just getting too hard. Amiria, are you seeing that as well?
Oh, absolutely. But I just want to firstly just give you an overview of how we've gathered information for against Māori wellbeing. We've used the Treasury NZ He Arawai Order framework to do this, and so we can measure Māori wellbeing against tangata ki, non-Māori, and focusing What is improved for Māori are areas of decline, including areas where there's been no change around Māori wellbeing. And although there's been small gains, as you've seen in the report, for Māori in areas of rangatahi offending, tamariki going into state care, teenage pregnancies, infant deaths, rising incomes, these pluses are only minor, and urgent work needs to happen at government level if we're to see Māori inequity and disparity disappear. In terms of housing, Māori sit smack bang in the middle of a housing crisis, as we mentioned yesterday at the launch, and struggling to survive huge rent increases. The crisis of unaffordable housing is impacting on Māori deeply, and it's got worse this year, with Māori almost 5 times more likely to be in need of social housing. And I just want to add here that many of our people sit on Māori-owned land, their own whenua, and they're helpless to do anything with that land or to build on it. It's a question that I posed to Grant Robinson last year around changing aspects of Te Turi Whenua Bill so that we Māori can utilise their land and access it better, regardless of whether there's numerous numbers of beneficiaries. There's a crisis. They have the whenua, and we need to be able to give them the resource to build on their whenua. Anyway, we know that housing crisis is a major. And although there is, exciting and innovative Māori-led housing projects, Diane, and they're underway, they are just too slow in coming forward. But there's continuing increasing need for housing that is in the right place. And this is important from a Māori perspective, Te Ao Māori perspective. Houses need to be purposely built for large families. They need to be on right sites for them. Māori are having to move into cities or to places where housing is available and being forced to move away from their whenua. That's why I raised the issue about the Te Turi Whenua Bill and accessing Māori land. Right design to meet whānau needs, really important. Other areas we're seeing Māori struggle in is education, rangatahi achievement, employment, just as everybody is struggling in this area, and access to good health services. And Māori disparity overall continues in many areas in the wake of COVID-19. We're also seeing recidivism rates, mentioned yesterday, stubbornly continuing to rise, and highlights the need for targeted, rehabilitative and reintegrative, consistent, long-term measures where whānau hapu and iwi perspective is incorporated, and that's really important. And one of the examples that we're seeing right now where that is occurring is in youth offending. And although we have seen a significant downward trend in youth offending, there is room for improvement. What we have seen with falling numbers of rangatahi being charged and going to court is the implementation of Te Kōti Rangatahi, which is an alternative to being sentenced and sent to prison. And you and I know that prison is no place for rangatahi to be. So the concept of Te Kōti Rangatahi is to steer our youth away from being in those places and finding alternative kaupapa Māori practices or ways of for our youth to address their offending, pay back to community, and in many cases they are asked to apologise to their That's right. And so in this situation, we have kaumātua queer who come alongside, support them to find new pathways for change. And that's really encouraging, for us to see.
Kia ora. Kia ora. So, and this is something that Māori have been thinking about for many years and adopting, and that is by Māori for Māori.
Ai, kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora. And I think it's working in and collaborating with other services such as yourself that we find ourselves that we are the ones that have to actually find those solutions, and being a part of a rōpū such as yourself, that we can work together, we can collaborate together, we can take a look at those things. You're right about Te Ture Whenua. I'm part of those lands where there are over, I don't know, thousands of us in one block. And it's very, very hard to try and get everybody together and agree. Some of them don't even know that they've got it. They've got land. Yes, and you're right. Te Ture Whenua, somehow or rather, it needs to change, but it needs to unloosen its reins that we have on there. And again, that's going back to government policy, that's going back to Te Ture Whenua, and it's also going back to our people as well. But Māori wellbeing, you and I spoke about, but for both of you, you and I spoke about the wellbeing and how our iwi services, I mean, this isn't up really, how our iwi health services have come together and worked out a plan and said, look, okay, you give us the rules, this is how we're going to do it because we know our people. Your thoughts around that, Ian?
I think that's, what in this report, what we've tried to do, the danger of the report is you end up talking about deficits, it's all about why we've been really keen to incorporate where things are working is because we really believe that what you just said, Māori for Māori, is the way forward. We all can help in mainstream as well, but in the end, it's people doing it within their own communities that's going to make the difference. And I know I saw this in my own experience because my wife and I became involved in an addiction program in partnership with the mongrel mob, and what we saw there was, as much as that program was, the people in it had, a journey to go on. There was a lot of positivity there and a real keen sense of wanting their tikanga, because they were primarily Māori, how much it meant to them and how much they wanted to connect back to their iwi, to their, hapu and all of that. But also the fact that the solution was within them.
Yes.
And so it's not just about doing services for people, it's people
working together.
And I think this report would like to capture more of that. And it's hard to catch the successes stories, to incorporate it in. But I think we as a nation are on a journey that we really do need to build on that a lot more, and not just focus on the deficits and so forth.
So, I just want to get your thoughts. Since 2020, we're now in 2022. We've been through this pandemic and we're still going through it now. But I don't know how you feel, but I feel as though there's been also a lot of positive coming out in these last 2 years. What I mean by is that there's a recognition. There's a recognition that, one, Māori can do it. Two, that our te reo Māori is now starting to flow like nobody's business on TV, on radio, wherever you go. But I think some of these collaborations that we've had since the pandemic, those are positives. Those are positives.
Amiria? Yeah. Kia ora, Diane. Yes, that is the highlight, those positives where our reo is being used across the country. It's been normalised in many ways across television, radio, and more non-Māori engaging with the reo. You know, just hitting the mark where we aim to have a million people in Aotearoa speaking or engaging with our reo. And I think over the last few years, we've actually come a long way to achieving that. Very difficult to get into Te Reo Māori classes these days. There's waiting lists.
It is actually, they're all full. They're all full. But they're it's wonderful that they are. You know, that they are. And
Diane, I just want to go back to our working together. I think that's an important point. You know, we're seeing some wonderful initiatives with our health organisations, Waipareira Trust and Ngāti Hine Trust. And I'm sure down your way there are trusts set up to work with our people and working really skillfully. And I think that message is about Māori really standing out in terms of meeting the need of our own people. So we are seeing that moving forward. But the key to all of this, of course, and we're seeing the new initiative with the government and the Māori Partnership Board. But I think partnership needs to be done a little bit better, in my view, in terms of meeting the needs of Māori.
Tika tau. And we've seen that so many times, the challenges that we face as Māori, and we challenge it and we carry on. We don't stop. I think you've seen that. We've seen that since 1840 and further back. But Ian, I want to come back to you for just to wrap everything up. And that is, what do we do? What do you do with the report? How is that going to be in favour? Oh, you know, when governments read it, is that going to be are they going to be in favour of the report, or should they be? Should they be looking at these things that you've got in the report? And what are they going to? And what do you want to see from it?
Well, we would obviously, what we want to see is people see an accurate idea of how we're doing as people. There's suggestions about the report. Gives suggestions of way forwards, so we hope they'll listen to us, and it gives us a lever, not only us, but it gives people like yourself, other agencies, material to be able to take to government. I know the politicians take note of it because a lot of them were asking for the report before it came out.
Well, that's good.
And they get nervous, and often, well, I already see that. I mean, our system isn't always, there's good bits to it and not so good bits to it. Like, for example, the opposition will be poring over it to use as a hammer. And so the questions at Parliament, often people will take our report and use it, and the government will be trying to defend what they're doing by using the positive things. But people use it, and our hope is that people will have it as a tool to hold government accountable, but also to a mirror of ourselves, because in a way, although the government can do so much, in a way, we as a whole community, it's a sign of how we're doing, how are we, you know, like in a way, if we think we've failed or succeeded, in a way we've all failed and we've all succeeded, and we all need to work hard to see that all these indicators, how our people are doing, are good, because it all comes down to all of us, not just the government. Although obviously we like to put the blowtorch on them as well. Oh, it's at the end of the day, it comes back to policy. You know, and it comes back to the debating chamber, and you're right about opposition and government. They'll go back and forth with each other, but actually what we want to see as people on the ground, has it made a difference? That's right.
Are you going to implement?
That's right.
And really, that's what we need to hear, because I think that's a beautiful report, may I add, that was something that we already knew. We knew, we knew on the ground, and especially for many of our people that live in that low income area, and it's hitting the middle income area as well. Not just low income, it's hitting middle as well. And when it starts to create that, when it starts to go like that, then government need to listen. And I think that your report, the Salvation Army report, State of the Nation, what that's done is exactly that, is for government to actually take a look at the policies that they've got in place. Are they working? Are you doing what you said you were going to do at the elections?
Yes.
And aha ko te aha, even though we've got COVID-19, these things should still be seen. There's something that should be done about it. Nō reira, nō runga i tērā, nei rā tāku e tuku atu i te reo wakamei kia kōrua, a te inoi, ki runga i a koutou, mai te rungarawa. Koia tēnā, me oma i ko mai a mai rā, e kōrua, koutou rā, te ope o te whakarauora o Aotearoa. Nō reira, it's been wonderful having you on board with us, and just talking about some of these issues and around some of the concerns that we have, that you've got evidence, you've got stats that back up your report. And I think that is one of the main things that we need to understand as well. Nō reira, Amiria, as I spoke to you before, I'm going to waiho te wā ki a koe. I'm going to leave this time for you to do our karakia to wrap our interview up. Nō reira, tēnā koe, Ian. It's been wonderful talking to you. Kei a koe te wā, Amiria.
Tēnā koe e te tuahine. He mihi kawana ki a koe mō tō kōrero, mō tō tāua, mātou kōrero tino rangatira i tēnei wā. Nā reira, tēnā koe.
Kia ora.
Kia inoi tātou.
Ana.
He te atua kaharawa. Anei mātunga pononga tāne me ngā wahine, e koro peko ki mua tō aroaro ki ta hāpai tia te ingoa i hukaraiti tō mātou kai whakaora. E pā toro mai tō ringa kei runga i tēnei rohe, i tēnei tangata kei roto i Aotearoa, ngā tangata Māori, me ngā tangata kē hoki e pā. Ho mai koa tō aroha, tō manaakitanga i roto i tēnei wāhanga tino mamai. Mō ngā iwi Māori, mō ngā tangata katoa. Nā reira e pā. He honore, he kororia ki a koe i roti te ingoa o tautama ko i hukaraiti tō mātou kai whakaora. Āmene.
Āmene. Nei rā tāku e mihi atu nei kia kōrua. Koutoura, e mātoki mai ana, e wakarongo mai ana ki e nei nā o ngā kōrero. You can join us on our Te Korimako o Taranaki Facebook page. And of course, it's been wonderful having both of yous. Nō reira, tēnā kōrua.